It's the second week of the climate conference in Paris, France, and ministers of environment and foreign affairs from almost 200 countries are still busy negotiating a new framework and policies related to climate change. Channel 7's Stefan Simon and Neil van der Berg spoke to Professor Guy Midgley, climate scientist and head of climate research at the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa, about the COP21 summit in Paris.
Is it getting worse due to, let's put it this way, man's presence here on Earth and the fact that we are polluting and? Or are we going through normal cycles that would have been here even if we didn't have this kind of modern diseases that we are experiencing?
We know we're affecting the climate through increasing greenhouse gases. The obvious response is, how do we switch the global economy away from its dependence? And that is, of course, of enormous value to Namibia, because that means that the cost of renewable energies is going to reduce dramatically, and you will be able to take advantage of that because you are the Saudi Arabia of solar energy.
Well, and fortunately, we just had the news in that Windhoek itself is looking to the opportunity of putting up a huge solar farm here. So I think we're moving in that way, and that's one of my questions. Can we still change what's happening?
Yes, of course we can. We're right at the very first sort of steps of global warming. We've probably warmed the world by about 0.8, just under 1 degree.
Sure.
The international community thinks that if we get to 2 degrees, we really start to see some very damaging effects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you need to put that into perspective for Namibia. So a 2-degree warming for the world will probably translate into more like a 3 to 4 degree warming for Namibia, because the land warms more than the oceans do. And dry, warm areas will tend to warm more. That's going to push your ecosystems, your natural systems, to some degree, and you depend on those natural ecosystems. You make a lot of money out of those natural ecosystems. Your economy is enormously based on that. Namibia should be pushing very, very hard with the Africa group to limit global emissions, and that would have the additional benefits of driving renewables, which would also benefit your economy.
Most of your people, I'm talking about our listeners at the moment, they think it's only the corporates and the government and the big companies that can do something. What can the man in the street, the guy like me and you, what can we do to make a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, the corporates and governments have to, number one, create the environment in which we as individuals can respond. It makes it much easier for us to respond as individuals if the right environment, the right incentives are in place. But as individuals, this is a story about consumption. So what are your patterns of consumption? Consumption of energy, consumption of water, consumption of all the things in your life. And if each of us looks quite seriously at that, not only as individuals but in our communities, can we change those consumption patterns in ways which benefits us? And you can have a better quality of life by doing this.
What you are saying in a way is each person has to take up the responsibility to be more responsible with what he or she does with consumption.
That's exactly right. We're all part of this global system. But I will also say that informing yourself is important, because there are a lot of people out there who want to dilute this message, who want to undermine this message, who are keen to see the status quo continue, because the status quo is good for their profits. And, the last 50 or 60 years has seen the wealthiest companies evolve on the backs of fossil fuels. These companies are now wealthier than most countries.